Okay, good morning, or should I say good afternoon, everyone, on a beautiful Thursday. Today is Thursday, April 13th, 2023. It's 2 p.m. and we are calling the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission meeting together. So with that, could I have call the board or agenda, or I'm sorry, the roll call. Sorry.
Director Wong, Mayor Brennan,
Here.
Joseph Nani,
Here.
Mayor Daley Jones, Director Dever,
Here.
Mayor Gallo,
Here.
Mayor Orcutt,
Here.
Mayor Sellers,
Here.
Councilperson Simon, Mayor Troer,
Present.
Mayor Wheelo,
Present.
Director Wong.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is great. I appreciate everyone coming today to the meeting. We have a few new board members that are joining us, and I'd like to welcome them specifically. Mayor Wheelo from Euclid. South Euclid, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Mayor Gallo from Parma Heights. Mayor Traor from Newburgh Heights, thank you, from the village. And we have one other, Mayor Daley Jones from North Olmsted, but unfortunately she had another commitment today, so I'd like to excuse her absence today. I don't know if any of you want to have any comment or statement you want to make joining us today? Gallo, anything?
Nope, just proud to be a part of this commission. Thank you.
Outstanding, thank you.
Glad to be back.
Thanks.
And excited to join, especially as a village, small community,
Yes.
to get a different voice.
You're very welcome. So thank you so much for coming. So these proceedings are recorded, so if we do have a comment, maybe we could just state before you make your comment just who you are, so it's easy for us to transcribe what's taking place here. Is that good, Annette?
Yes.
All right. So with that being said, I'd like to note that Councilwoman Simon has joined us also. Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public?
No comments.
No comments. All right. Next item is approval of the minutes from our February 9th, 2023 meeting. I don't know if you've had an opportunity, it's in your packet, to review them.
So moved.
Second.
So there's a motion by Councilwoman Simon and seconded by Mayor Brennan. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. So we'll jump right into the resolutions. Mary?
Yes, thank you. Although the agenda is lengthy, we will not go line by line of all the policy updates, so we will try and get through this in an hour as best we can. The first resolution we have is 230413-A. It is for program year 2023 for the Healthy Urban Tree Canopy, and I will turn it over to Allison Ball, a planner in our team.
Great, thank you. For those of you who do not know me already, I am Allison Ball. I'm a planning initiative specialist with the County Planning Commission, and I also work on the Clean Ohio program as well as the state infrastructure programs. I'm here today for the Healthy, what happened to the, there it is, the Healthy Urban Tree Canopy Initiative. This initiative was developed as part of the county's Climate Change Action Plan back in 2019. The Department of Sustainability advocated for the initial 5-year investment in this program with the designation of county planning as a program administrator and fiscal agent. In addition to working with sustainability, you can see on the slide that we also partner with the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District as well as the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. So with that, I'm going to get into the specifics of the next program year. So, did I pass? Yep. So the purpose of this grant program is to increase tree canopy and thus help lessen the impacts of climate change in Cuyahoga County. And this year, the program year 2023 program goals are to continue to add large-scale planting, expand tree canopy in areas that are vulnerable, plant trees in open or vacant parcels, establish new tree canopy, and protect existing tree canopy. I have this one highlighted. In the past years, we really focused on planting trees, But this year, we also want to allow for more maintenance of existing tree canopy, as well as getting some communities the ability to make master tree plans if they don't have them, bringing this back. And then establish plans and policies that promote the tree canopy. So this is actually the 4th year of the program because we did not run it during the pandemic, but in the past 3 program years, 78 projects were awarded funds. This included to 37 applicants, of which 22 were municipalities. Nonprofits that have an environmental mission are also eligible to apply, as well as CDCs. So, and school districts, and there was one more, library districts. So this resulted in the planting of over 6,750 trees, 21 plans for future planting work, over 16,000 potential planting sites identified, and funding for 2 tree nurseries in Cuyahoga County. So just to update you on the grant program from PY22, the communities in green were awarded projects. The ones that are circled in red, we worked in conjunction with the Cleveland Tree Coalition to split up the funds so that we had more to spread countywide. And you can see the darker the green, the more trees that were being planted. So in looking at this is a competitive grant program. And what you see in front of you now is the criteria that we look at to score these programs. So we're looking at the budget and the local match, the project management, readiness to proceed, and adequacy of planning, the urban forest initiatives that already exist in the communities, qualified personnel, implementation and survivability planning. It's not a tree planting grant, really. It's growing trees, not just planting them. We need them to continue to grow and thrive for at least 10 years in order to become canopy. We do take into consider equity zones and climate vulnerability assessment, and we work to update that from the original climate action plan. We look at the existing tree canopy coverage and partnerships, innovation, and other factors. We're looking at a kickoff from Earth Day to Arbor Day this year, so that's coming up very closely. And the applicant workshop webinar will be on May 4th. One thing that's missing from the schedule is we're also going to have like a workshop session with applicants. We have a new form and format this year, so if applicants have questions, we'll schedule another day in there, and I should get that date by tomorrow. But the applications will be due June 1st, with the awards being announced on July 14th. So, and it's an 18-month program.
Thanks. First off, for the webinar, obviously that'll be recorded.
Yes.
It'll be on the website then
Yes.
for people to review.
Mm-hmm.
Really a great program, and it's I'm glad to see it's continuing, and hopefully maybe there'll be more fun.
Well, and I just want to thank Allison. I mean, this has really been, 3 program years of doing this, and every year Allison and the team have made improvements in the application and the reimbursement process, so we feel like we're getting better each year. And I don't know if you want to do a quick announcement since we had the TAC meeting this morning on neighborly.
We're going to be working on getting new software to manage this grant. So, and it will help streamline the application process as well as the reimbursement process, and everything will be saved on a cloud, and it'll create the graphics of how much of the trees they planted that they said they were going to plant. It's very interesting. It will be coming to County Council in some form, but I'll throw that one back at Mary.
But
So,
and the good thing
yes.
about this one too is it's actually a partnership. Department of Development is looking at it for their CBDG program applications, and so the timing is really good. They invited Allison to participate in some of the webinars and things that they were hosting to showcase the software, and we have a lot of buying power with adding on to the development's contract versus doing our own separate one. So we'll get additional licenses specific for the urban tree canopy. So it was nice for 3 departments to come together and have buying power for that. Yes.
Director?
So this is Director Huang, City of Cleveland. So good to see you, Allison. Having worked for a CDC that benefited from this program, it's an excellent program. We ended up with a master plan and with tree planting funds and have since, the new staff has since planted many of those trees and overseen that. So it's a really great way to, especially with areas with low urban canopy. So really, really wonderful program, having gone through it myself in a former role. I'm happy to hear that maintenance will now be considered, since you mentioned it does take 10 years for trees to mature. It's like training a puppy, is what they say, right? So I'm curious, out of the funds, what is the intended breakdown for maintenance versus new plantings?
So, there's three, again, there's gonna be tree planting only, maintenance and tree planting, and planting and tree planting. So we have about 25% will be allocated, up to 25% will be allocated for the maintenance and tree planting. Again, we have a little disclaimer in the narrative that, that could change, depending on how many come in asking for the different stuff. But the intention is 25% for the maintenance and tree planting and 25% for the planting and tree planting. Because again, the first year we covered a lot of tree plans, so we feel that there's just some critical gaps that need to be filled.
Councilwoman Simon?
Just a quick question, Allison, about how are the trees doing are you inventorying trees that survive, or how, that was a main concern of our committee,
Right.
was to see that was overseen and how they're doing.
So that's a great question. A lot of the trees are part of, or at least a portion of the trees are part of a research project that Holden is conducting. And so they are going back because they are inoculating trees. Now, this is not part of the grant. These applicants can volunteer to be part of this program. And they're inoculating the trees with soil from the forest, native forests at Holden Forest and Garden, to see if it will make them grow faster in the urban environments due to the mycorrhizae and the underground root system. So they're going back and monitoring a lot of these trees because they have a bunch that are getting inoculated, as well as some that are controlled that aren't inoculated. So that's one way that we're keeping track of this. The Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District goes out for all the plantings to make sure. So if they're nearby where there was a previous planting, they might stop by and take a look. But the applicants have been pretty honest with us. We have one project that came back to us this year. They had underruns. They said that they had 4 or 5 trees that died and one that got stolen. And so they wanted to use their underrun money to replant those trees, and that project scope was.
So my question though, are you keeping track of this someplace? Planning Commission or Soil and Water, you just arbitrarily get some feedback from cities how it's actually going?
It's not, there isn't necessarily anything in place, but I can see where we have discussed it. It's just so hard to follow 6,700 trees. All of us, I know that, and I can't speak for them, and I can get back to you on this. The Soil and Water Conservation District is looking at getting either fellow or intern to go out and manage.
Allison, may I
Yes.
suggest, as part of the whatever applicants, their requirement need to report. It's not on you.
Past the end of the project agreement.
I'm just suggesting that
Okay.
they report back. If they're
Okay.
getting money from us, they should be reporting back
Okay.
what's happening with that.
Okay.
And not just arbitrarily, we gotta do
Yes.
so. I think it's an important metric
Okay.
for at least county council.
All right.
I think that's important too,
Yeah.
just to follow up on that. So is GIS, are we just keeping track specifically where they are? I mean, are our friends in the IT department assisting, or actually county planning has their own GIS? I mean, have we marked where they're
We don't
at?
have the markings of where they are. We did, some have provided the map, some have just provided pictures,
Okay.
because they give us a map in the application of where they're gonna be. So, and we ask for maps and photos in the quarterly reports, and sometimes we get them and sometimes we don't. one thing that the Neighborly software program will help us do is allow us to track that much better. So, yeah. And they will also, this Neighborly software, if we don't get the reports, they will send out an automatic email saying this is due and late, which is something that I've been trying to keep up with. Because that's one of the hard things is getting these reports, especially we ask for them quarterly, and some of them are only doing the work every fall and spring. So,
And I think to Councilman Simon, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So let me just say this, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councilwoman Simon. I think that the reporting would be should be a part of the application process. I would also say that in your grant funding, you better set aside some dollars for because you need a report given, right? And most, if you go to some of these places, they don't have many people to dedicate to that. So you got to you can't cover their normal job and cover the trees too. So, so you got to kind of think like that. The other thing I would say is this, that as you think about this program, I'm not sure that many places know what their population of trees are, right? I was in a meeting with the county yesterday, and they informed me what Warrensville tree count was, right? And I would say that, we would know that. There has to be and then my other question is this, is there in your process, I know everybody can apply for this grant, get some trees, but is there a plan for these communities, or are they just giving you a plan of what the trees are, right? So one, you would have to know how many trees you have. Secondly, somebody would have to tell me, okay, if we're gonna go for trees, where would be the best place to put these trees? And then the other thing is that when you're talking these trees, like in my city, like they would typically have to be in tree lawn areas, right? Well, there are only a certain number of trees that are gonna survive in Cleveland next to the street and salt, right? We've already done that exercise. So there are only a handful. So is this wide open to whatever tree you want?
no, we do, again, we look at, there's a tree list submitted as part of the application, so we look at that, we score more for native trees. We score more if a municipality already has a plan in place, and most of the plans that we get in have, like I said, over 16,000 sites identified where they can plant the trees, and then in some of these master plans, they'll even put the types of, not type species, but small tree, big tree, medium tree, big tree, like what that will do. And we look at master plans that the basic thing is identify the right tree, right place. So, and we are looking again for more of the canopy tree, because again, your canopy isn't created necessarily in the tree lawn. So,
Mayor?
More so towards support throughout the process. So like for smaller communities like us, we have a tree board and and we have a tree board meeting this afternoon actually. And so I think this will be a good opportunity, but to Mayor Seller's point, if you don't have the staff capacity, so between our tree board and the service department, they are putting forth our tree canopy project. So what does the support look like through, if someone was to apply for this grant application for administrative support to kind of walk the tree board in or service department personnel?
So we, again, will fund the planning grants and tree policies and maybe the formation, but we don't really pay for administrative costs. And it's a specific line item, I know, because I'm editing it right now, that we don't pay for the administrative costs to prepare the grant or to fill out the reports. So that we don't fund. I will say that there is a lot of tree funding coming down from the feds that we're still trying to understand. They had a pre-notice of funding opportunity webinar recently that was clear as mud, but they are going to be funding for administrative support for tree commissions and stuff like that. So
I
that
think
is
I'm
my
also
understanding.
asking, I know that there's going to be a workshop, so if there's questions for folks who
Yep.
are doing this in their volunteer time, will there be a support mechanism in place?
Oh,
for them to
absolutely. Like
questions through?
I said, there's a line item in that schedule that I'm hoping to get the deadline for tomorrow, that will be a scheduled webinar. Any of the grant programs that we work on, applicants will always welcome to call for any application review. and feedback, you know, how would this score kind of thing? And we can give them like a general idea of how to strengthen it or make it more competitive, so, yes.
Allison, if it hasn't been done already, the county grant writers, if you haven't reached out to them in regards to funding opportunities to be on the outlook for them, I would suggest.
I will do that, actually.
I think Jennifer, you had something, and I would just add, I guess, to kind of everyone's point, come on up and sit down. Definitely the health of the trees planted has been a topic of conversation. There have been some conversations within the new administration on how can we look at potentially funding something that is doing that piece of it. And I also know Soil and Water is looking to assist communities who have a very low tree canopy and have not put forth good applications in the past to help strengthen them and do a better application so they have a better opportunity at getting those funds. So we are talking about a lot of the same things and the issues that you're raising, but we're just trying to formalize as much as we can and not overcommit at this point. Jennifer, you had.
Yes. One thing I wanted to add for the benefit of this governing
Jennifer.
body. I'm Jennifer Karoff. I'm the agency's business services manager. That Allison is correct that our charge has been to be the fiscal agent and steward of these dollars and the administrator of this grant. But we are working closely with the Soil and Water District, who really have a monitoring arm. And so they are going out and monitoring these projects. They are required when the trees are planted, that they are done properly, they're not over mulched, that the species, like all those checks and balances. So I would say, Councilperson Simon, that perhaps it's a charge that we can tack on to their duties already, because they are assisting, whereas we're doing the paperwork and the legwork, and that has been our charge, that entity is really out there in the field doing that monitoring.
Thanks.
If I could, Mayor Orcutt?
Yeah, Mayor Orcutt. More on a positive note that I wanted to say about this program, we did participate in it, and Allison, thank you very much for all of your help. It was actually fairly simple when we followed the instructions on the application. And Councilman Simon, I don't know who it was, but somebody actually did come out and inspect our trees twice since they were in, which was really good. And Soil and Water came out and they instructed, we had volunteers there, and they instructed, don't over mulch, let the tree breathe. And then we ended up investing as a city, we invested in those water bags. And we bought 160 of those. And then we actually hired some summer help, some high schoolers, and they kept filling them every day or every other day. And it was actually a very positive program. So it was very simple too, very, very simple. So thank you for all your help.
Thanks.
Mayor Wheelo, I have a question. So we do have GIS, and right now we are merging. We have a brand new tree program in which we're merging our old one. Is that something then that you would want us to send over to the county GIS to see? I mean, we could be your guinea pig. I mean, we're close to merging both of these. I mean, we're.
You know, that is something that we've talked about is mapping, and that what would make sense for the county, because a lot of communities, as you see, even merging your old with your new system is taking some time. So merging 59 communities worth of data from old to new, that make, so I think.
We're doing this because we work very close with the GIS system in the county. It's been, helps us with results-driven data. So I'm offering, so take it back, we're getting close to, if they want a guinea pig, I'm sure we would be willing to do it.
Great.
If Allison, and Mary, I guess, if the County Planning Commission's GIS team can't, or needs some assistance, obviously, the county and Andy Johnson may be able to assist also.
They are great.
Any other further questions?
I mean, I would just maybe offer that, as part of the application, since it's mostly an administration, not monitoring, but just a commitment from the applicant to provide you with a report, right? And I think with that, I would like to move to approve with the consideration of adding a commitment to reporting back to the county for this grant program.
I second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded.
So,
Any,
I just have a question, because the county planning is a fiscal agent, and do you have the authority to insert that in for the applicants as a commitment, or is that soil and water?
No,
Would
we
we have the
can add
ability-
it to the project.
We can add it?
We can add it to the project agreement and even the application materials, because again, this isn't getting kicked off, it's just an extra sentence. And it would be, maybe an annual report up to 2 to 3 years and map, annual report and map up to 2 and 3 years, or GIS, however, some people just put an X on a map and other people.
And we'll just make sure, we'll just,
Yeah,
confirm
we'll
with
work on that.
sustainability.
We have some time, so.
Any other comments, questions on this?
Yeah, I do.
Mayor?
Oh, yeah, Mayor Brennan, University Heights. It's just knowing that as a general fund agency, we're contributing our services. And what is the time commitment on behalf of the service?
Time commitment.
Oh, time commitment. It has gotten better each year, but I do believe that is one of the main reasons we're looking at this neighborly software to reduce our time needed on these and streamline the process. So, well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it has been something that's been very, time consuming, and Allison not only manages this, but then 2 programs from the state, and Susan and others, work on these as well. But I think every year we've gotten better at streamlining the process, and that the new software will be a tremendous help in reducing time spent by staff.
Very good. If I could just add to that. I'm glad to hear that. I think the program is worthy. I like the idea that that multiple agencies are working on the program, because I think that helps ensure its success and its longevity. The only thing I've been concerned about in the past was how much time how much time we end up devoting as an agency compared with other things that we do that are revenue generating. And that's not to say that because it's not revenue generating, it's not important. Quite the contrary, it is important. That's why we're doing it. But I like to know where its place is in general with everything else that we do. So thank you.
And maybe when we do our next fiscal update, we can provide that information.
Okay, I think it's something we should just keep looking at even while we continue to support and participate. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, any other comments? On the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next 2 resolutions are involving Olmsted Township, and the first one is 230413B, Sanctuary and Preserve. I will introduce Megan Cheney, our senior planner here, who works very closely with the township and the developers for subdivisions.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to first recognize several people in attendance. We have trustee Janine Kress from Olmsted Township. We also have Jim O'Connor from Pulte Homes, the applicant. Also of great help during this process, as well as the next resolution, we have Wesley Kretsch, our lawyer. And we also have Chris George from Public Works. So this first resolution, number 230413B, has to do with a modification for a preliminary plan for Phase 4 of the Sanctuary and Preserve. And the proposed modifications to that preliminary plan have also necessitated a change to the master subdivision plan for the Sanctuary and Preserve PRD development in Olmsted Township. So a quick history. I know most of you are fairly well familiar with this development. The current master subdivision plan proposes the creation of 136 sublots to be built in 5 phases. Now, this subdivision first came to the Planning Commission in 2020, so we've had a number of iterations and applications for various phases and adjustments to this subdivision. This subdivision represents a partnership of 2 different developers, with Pulte Homes developing phases 1, 3, and 4, and Valori Homes developing phases 2A, 2B, and phase 5. So real quickly, the preliminary plan has a couple different modifications. The primary one being the addition of an additional entrance, point of egress in phase 4.
Other adjustments to lot size and lot lines are also involved in the modification to accommodate this additional point of egress. No other changes to the number of lots or the order of lots are being proposed, and it should also be noted that the master subdivision that was originally passed in 2020, the number of lots, the 136 lots, has remained the same across the different modifications to the master subdivision plan as well. Let's see, so that is the phase 4 is outlined in red, and that's where the modifications are occurring. And you see that additional entrance in phase 4 that's leading out to John Road. So the old preliminary plan for phase 4 initially suggested or proposed a turnaround sub-street, and that the lots have been shifted to accommodate that additional entrance and exit way. So that's the close-up for phase 4. It includes 29 sublots on 9.5 acres, roughly 1,000 lineal feet of pavement, 2,130 lineal feet of sidewalk, 1,000 feet of sanitary sewer, and 3,160 lineal feet of storm sewer. So the rationale behind the double approval is consistency. So plans within the subdivision process need to be as consistent as possible, and any larger modifications between the master subdivision plan, the preliminary plans, the improvement plans, all have to be fairly consistent with what is ultimately filed for the final plat. So the proposed revisions for phase 4 would have rendered the final plat inconsistent with the preliminary plan and the current master subdivision plan. So Pulte submitted this plan to us in March, and we circulated it among our reviewing agencies for review and comment. And our reviewing agencies, including Public Works, Soil and Water Conservation District, the township, all got back to us and said that they would recommend approval with conditions. And I'll go through a number of different details in these conditions. I'll go through just kind of a highlight of them. So first and foremost, the approval for the township, it's in process, but it's going before the Township Planning Commission, or Zoning Commission, later this month. So of course, making our approval contingent upon their approval. Also assuring that minimum open space requirements will be met. There was a slight shift down in open space. I believe 0.34 acres were reduced to accommodate the new roadway. Also, the preliminary plans need to be updated with some data that was missing from the initial application, having to do with existing data, and as well as some proposals, including where different pins are, monuments, stuff that do not really impact the holistic review of this application. And then also making sure that improvement plans receive updated approvals from Public Works, from Soil and Water, and OEPA where necessary. And that's it. Those are the conditions that we recommend for approval.
Thanks, Allison. Mayor Sellers.
Question. How many homes were originally set up for the entire subdivision originally? How many?
136.
And where are you at now?
I believe, so phase 1 is completely built out, and Jim can probably speak to this with more definitive knowledge than I can. But I believe that was 36 homes in phase 1. And phase 3 has not yet been, the final plat will likely come before the Planning Commission, or a portion of that will likely come before the Planning Commission in the next few months.
Phase 1 is done, you're proposing phase 4 here? Or, so all your phases, how many you have set as, Jim?
Three phases that Pulte owns.
All right, and those phases, how many in those?
95 total.
95 total, 100 and
36 all
36
told.
from the beginning, right? This additional last phase you're just proposing here is how many more additional than was originally submitted?
This was part of the original submission, so there's no additional
Okay.
and no change in the initial proposed. So phase 4 was 29 homes and it has stayed at
Just
29 homes.
just a reconfiguration.
Right.
Allison, can you just put up, Megan, I'm sorry, could you
Okay.
just put up the drawing that shows the layout of the area?
Yeah.
That might be
I
helpful.
don't know.
Oh, I can, let me go back.
Maybe I have to go back there.
How many points of egress then are coming from the subdivision now?
So
there's two originally?
Two were originally planned. One was in phase 1, which has been constructed. The second one was planned in Valori's section of the subdivision in phase 2. And we'll talk more about the intricacies in the following presentation. But
Okay.
you all saw this, the rephasing of phase 2 into 2A and 2B late last year. And that was to accommodate the building of that second point of egress in phase 2A. And phase 2 has not begun construction yet. And because we have a requirement in our subdivision regulations that a single access subdivision can have no more than 50 lots for dwelling units, we made they wanted to get in that second subdivision so Pulte could continue their homes because they're ready to plat phase 3, but that would create 66 homes.
I'm sure your safety forces are pleased that there's another point of egress in here, right?
Yeah, and we were and Chris George can speak to this, but that additional point of egress, it meets all the different standards for in terms of distance between openings and the next intersection as well.
Minutes matter.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other further questions or comments from the board? Seeing none.
Make a recommendation to
Second.
approve.
Motion by Mayor Sellers, second by Mayor Wheelo. Any other further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
The second resolution relating to Olmsted Township is an amendment to the subdivision regulations. It is Resolution 230413-3. Again, Megan, thank you.
Okay. And again, we have Pulte requesting an amendment to Resolution 220908B, which came before the commission last September, which conditionally approved a modification to Section 104.19F of the 2010 subdivision regulations. And it should be pointed out, this subdivision got approval just months before our update to our subdivision regulations, so it is still held to the 2010 subdivision regulations. So that's what we've been referencing, even though we have a 2020 set of regulations. So that section of 104.19F relates to the phasing of subdivisions, of phased subdivisions. It states specifically that phased subdivisions have to be filed sequentially in terms of the number of their phases. So again, the Sanction and Preserve, two developers with Pulte Homes developing phases 1, 3, and 4, and Valori Homes building phases 2 and 5. I just went over that section 104.19. So it was not an issue with Pulte going in and developing phase 1, which included a point of egress. They were able to move faster than Valori, and that became an issue because Valori had phase 2. Valori came and rephased into 2A and 2B so they could just construct that second point of egress, but they still have not fully received approvals from their improvement plans yet. So Pulte is in a position where their portion of development phases 3 and 4 hinge upon the development of that second egress, which is why they propose the revisions to that phase 4 to include that second point of egress. Pulte requested to us back in September that we allow a modification to the phasing requirements, that phase developments go sequentially. And the Planning Commission approved that. There's just an overview of the subdivision there. County Planning approved that modification with conditions that the second entrance planned for phase 2 be constructed before the phase 3 final plat is submitted. They went ahead and are finishing construction of phase 3 and are ready to file that phase 3 plat. But that second entrance point in phase 2 has not yet been constructed. So they are asking us to modify or amend that initial modification that was made in September to include, to allow them to proceed with development, considering this new point of egress that will be built. So the modification would include amending the language in the resolution to include phases 3 and 4, and allow for the platting of 12 additional sublots in phase 3. That would bring the total up to 50. So it would be in keeping with the requirement that single access subdivisions be at 50 lots or below. So they would be able to file these sublots for phase 3. And then once that second entrance is constructed in phase 4 or the third, depending on the order of construction, they would be allowed to go ahead and plat the remainder of phase 3 as well as phase 4. So this shows the updated, a close-up of the updated master subdivision plan with the red outlined as the remaining phase 3 as well as phase 4 once that is constructed. I know, that was a lot of back and forth. I apologize.
I deferred to Mayor Sellers and I'll ask
Thank you, Councilman. Question, all right, so Pulte's moving faster than anybody, right? So is Valori gonna be able to finish the job, or is Pulte taking that over? I mean, I know the game, right? If you're gonna produce, there's something wrong. It's like, there's a problem, right?
Yeah, so we've been before you multiple times.
Just introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Jim O'Connor with Pulte Homes. We've been before you multiple times. And one of the things in the initial structure of the community was laid out where Valori had half and we had half, but because of the sequential ordering of the phases, we were phase 1 and then he's phase 2. He is going to operate on his own timeline, and all of a sudden, when we came before it, that structural flaw that, he had phase 2, he has that second entrance, we can't stop the machine. For us, we have commitments to our homeowners, we have employees, we have people whose jobs and lives depend on our success.
Yeah, I just wanna know where they're going.
Yeah.
Are they gonna be able to finish, or you gonna finish it?
So in 18 months, maybe we'll gladly entertain that conversation.
That's what you said, right? That's all. It's not really complicated.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Simon?
I have concerns about this. Obviously, this has been kicked around at the Planning Commission now for over almost a year, and you had trouble proceeding because of the glitch in the law, and we enabled you to proceed. And for us now to modify this again and give indulgence to this process, I don't know how comfortable I am with that, and if we don't do this, is that gonna delay indefinitely? I mean, what would be the outcome if we don't indulge this request?
I think I can let, I guess I view it as would there be any harm if we did indulge it? And that's, obviously we sent this out to all the reviewing agencies, just as we would a preliminary or a final plat. And they saw no issue with it. So long as they're held to that 50 sublot, which this would, that's in keeping with our subdivision regulations. The construction of that loop in phase 3, I think adds the safety forces like that, to have that additional resting point or access to homes if they need to get there. from our point of view, there's no harm. So I'll let Jim cover the.
And we want to provide Valori as much time as he needs, but that was problematic. We even approached the township to say, there are multiple communities you have in the township that are over 50 units on one street. Would you entertain a temporary variance to allow us to plat all of phase 3? But their fire safety forces drew a hard line and said, no, we'd rather not go down that road because it opens up a dangerous precedent. So by us enabling that second entrance on land that we own and control, it solves the problem permanently. And so that's why all parties that have been involved have felt that's the best solution.
Okay, I just wanted to ask these questions
Yeah.
since this has been
Yeah.
an issue.
A lot.
Right.
I should also say too that this has happened before, and not necessarily in this manner, but we've had a developer who, with the housing downturn, 15 years ago, they were only able to plat a certain number of homes, and then the rest was left as an open block, like B.
Yeah, you gotta have muscle and strength in this day and age to do that. And my question again is either the Lord can do it or he can't do it, right? It's not overly complicated, right? Because at this point in time, you should not be proceeding ahead of him, right? You're to a point where you're going, they're moving so slow that you gotta go
Right.
this route.
That's
right.
With the construction of the second or additional point of egress, it almost becomes like two different subdivisions.
And I think,
Any,
Jim, how long is that stretch of Valori's roadway? How long is that?
How long is it? It's about
Lineal feet.
3,000 feet maybe?
2,000 lineal feet, so
Yes.
the mayors know what a lineal foot cost is. Do the math. All right. So he doesn't have the money. Something's wrong.
It's $1.2 million.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
something's wrong.
And that's what I was gonna ask.
go ahead, Mayor.
And that's what I was gonna ask, is there any financial impact of it on any of the parties involved? And we know construction costs, materials, delay and things like that. So I guess to Councilwoman Simon's question, what is the impact if we don't move forward with this?
I think Trustee Kress could answer that. I think that there's a definite interest of the township to have land that has already been altered, developed. So I think there's that. I think there's a strain on the community, and definitely those agencies that are involved with inspection and reviewing, that puts a strain on the longer this extends, the more strain there is on public agencies' tasks with reviewing and inspecting.
Any other
Good
further
for us to
questions?
know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I think that's good for us to know.
Okay. Anything further?
I make a motion, we approve the subdivision work.
I second.
You'll come back to us with this thing down the road is coming.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any other further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you.
Annette, did you get the first and second?
It's Mayor Troyer,
Okay.
since she hadn't had one yet.
Okay.
Okay.
The next handful of resolutions are related to various policy and procedure manual updates. 230413-D, E, F, G, and H. There is a variety of updates that we would like to make to our policy manual. I've been working very closely with the law department. Thank you to Wes for all his help with this. Part of the big backstory with this is really just the Cuyahoga County's employee manual is now in its 6th revision. Back just in November, the last revision, there were more than 15 updates to that manual. When our manual was created and approved back in 2014, a lot of our policies and procedures drew parallel to the county's manual. So we really have a need to update a lot of the policy and procedures for consistency in language, updating for our current processes that we have in place. So we wanted to put forth to you a handful of those, understanding that our full manual is 18 chapters. There's no way we could do this all at once, and we're doing this all internally with the help of the law department. So we wanted to prioritize the policies that needed the most most timely updates. And so 230413D is for, sorry, that was my slide on that, is for the compensation policy updates. And so this is something that was never really folded into our policy and procedure manual. We want to make sure we're formalizing that as a chapter in our manual. A lot of what it goes to also is just our current processes in terms of how we do compensation and how it relates to probationary period, timely reviews and things that we have processes outside of a policy. So it's been recommended that we include all of those in there. We did update our annual review process tool last year that also includes a mid-year review, which was not part of this policy previously. So those are the big changes with the compensation policy. We have always included in our budget percentage for merit raises in addition to any cost of living adjustments that are done at the county level. And so it's something that we want to continue to offer our employees. And so bring that forth to you. You have the full policy in your packet.
The equity adjustments in here as well, I see that.
Correct,
Right,
yes,
good.
yes. So as we had new staff come in and we had adjustments in salary and staff of people who had been here for different lengths of time, trying to make sure we're equating salaries among staff.
Can I ask,
Yes.
what is your merit adjustment policy? Is it a certain percentage based on performance review?
It is. So we used to always have it as a average of 3 to 5, and we just decided right now it's better to keep it to a 1 to 5. I think we said 1 to 5, just to give ourselves some leeway because of the big adjustments that were done at the county level last year. We want to have some flexibility, but it is based on ratings across the evaluation tool of meet or exceeds, above exceeds, and really trying to look at performance done. And especially now this year that we are going to be applying our vision, mission, strategic imperatives against that, and how well individuals are doing on achieving those efforts as well in their work.
Joe?
So I believe in if not most or all of the resolutions, it uses the language to better align with the updated policies of Cuyahoga County. Does that mean we are using exact language or getting close to it? Just how does it compare what we're doing with our regular manual?
So there's, I don't believe there's actually a separate compensation policy for the county. Be under, I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't think there's a separate standalone compensation policy. So a lot of what it is, especially with vacation and sick, and there's different references that we used to have to my HR, now it's my time.
Yes.
There's things where it was like HR reps kept changing, so we figured we'd keep language consistently just to be your human resources representative. So there are not a lot of places we are, but what we did do is take our manual and overlay the language that was in the last update of the manual. And so where there is language that we had something similar, we do adopt some of the language that is actually in the county's manual where it made sense.
So what you just said is that the compensation policy is not in the county manual? Is that correct?
It's correct.
Okay. In D, you use the language to better align with updated county policies. I just don't know if it's sitting there makes sense.
Okay,
If
in
it's
this
not
one specifically.
correct.
Well, this, are you looking at the memo or the actual resolution?
I'm looking at the resolution, the fourth whereas
Okay, we can take a look at that.
uses that language. It's just that's what drew my eye to it. And my other question would be, and again, this is probably a conversation for another day, but just to think about the concept of having the same manual. And instead of having to do this and then have it, and maybe having language in your policies and procedures that again, this is if you want to defer to the county, but deferring to the county that anytime a change is made at the county level, that it automatically applies to the planning commission policies and procedures. It just seems to be cleaner and helpful to me for my end, but I'm also not you.
No, and I do think when it comes to vacation and sick, we do follow the accruals and methods of the county, so that may be a good place to put it, especially if something changes with the way the county awards time. I don't know, Wes, do you have any thoughts on that? Just in general.
The one example, Mr. Nani, that comes to mind that I think the Planning Commission may frankly be more progressive is with respect to remote work.
Okay.
Under the county handbook, we don't have a remote work policy, at least a permanent one. We have a telecommuting.
Okay.
We have a telecommuting policy, but that's limited to up to 90 days per each time it's approved. So with the remote work, I will say the flexibility that the planning commission has is that it can implement something like that for its employees without having to worry about what happens at the county level. And even with this proposed policy 5.22, I don't think this kind of language exists in the county handbook where employees who are non-bargaining would be the best example, are eligible for a merit-based increase. That's not something that exists
Correct.
at the county level either. So it's not my decision to say whether it's good or bad. It's just the planning commission has that flexibility to do so.
Yeah, I was, to Joe, no, I am opposed to just cookie cutter the county policy for brevity.
doesn't fit.
And it was because of this remote work. It was a unique issue at the planning commission during coming back out of COVID, that there was a lot of difficulty bringing people back, and we at the county level is much slower. It's a smaller group. We have the ability to be flexible. I think we should take advantage of that, and the unique work of the planners. They probably excel being outside of this environment at times. I'm not a planner, but I would think they can be very creative and outside of this office. So
So to that point, my only recommendation would be is if to retake a look at the better aligning, because it doesn't necessarily, it'll confuse people, I guess.
Right, but that's a point well taken about I did not notice that candidly, but that's a fair point.
And it could have been, since we had so many of them,
Of
it might just
course.
carried over.
Some do and some don't.
Right, so we'll
Yeah.
make sure we take a look at that.
Questions? Mayor?
So are we getting away from the hybrid work structure? Because my question is related to which tax bracket will a person working from home be taxed, especially when it comes to regional tax, or are they gonna still be at the, I think it's 2.2?
That's a whole nother question.
That's a mayor question.
Well, yeah, and I
Wes, do
think,
you want to weigh in on
yeah,
that?
well, we could probably let's go in order of the policies, because this one's compensation, so that doesn't have remote work in it, but.
I jumped ahead.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
Any other?
Do we need to amend this?
strike
to-
that.
To strike out that language on D that says that we're aligned with, thanks, Joe.
It's in the fourth
Should I
whereas.
make a motion to take that whereas sentence off? I make a motion to remove that.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, any other further comments or questions? There's been a motion made and seconded. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you. Second resolution for your attention is the 230413-E. This is a revision to the new hire probationary period policy.
Point of order. That was just an amendment to.
That was just
Oh,
an amendment.
yes,
so we
sorry.
have
Point,
to
good
now-
point.
Motion
Yes.
approved the amended resolution.
I will now, thanks.
Motion made by Councilwoman Simon, seconded by Mayor Gallo. Okay.
Thank you for that.
As a planning director.
As a
I
Point
of order.
Very much approve.
Yes.
Any other further discussion on that? All those in favor of the approval?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion stands. Thank you. Passes.
Thank you. Okay, so now we move on to the new hire probationary period policy 230413-E. And this one, maybe to your point, Mr. Nani, we did reflect the county language. I had several discussions with law about whether or not 180 days was too long versus a 90-day. And we did conclude that it was in better form to go with 180 days. But what you will see in some of the other policies we have, we previously referenced probationary period completion before you were eligible, which some of those now have changed to 90 days of employment to be considered eligible. So there was a little bit of back and forth on it, but we do feel that we wanted to make sure that we were consistent with that 180 days, but also to align better with what we have instituted internally as reviews during that probationary period. So checking in at informal at 30 days to see how things are going, any concerns, and a formal review at the completion of the probation period, 180 days. And that would hopefully coincide with either a mid-year evaluation of the rest of the team and or an annual review of the rest of the team.
Okay, any comments, questions?
I would just say that I would think that you would want to lean toward the 180 days, so you can get a real feel for if the people can make it or not. 90 days is nothing.
And that was the advice we got.
Okay, any other further comments? Seeing none, motion to approve?
Motion, Brennan.
Second. Oh,
Thank
Very good.
Director Wong.
Did you get that? Very good. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Thanks.
Okay, the next resolution is 230413-F. This is pertaining specifically to remote work policy. And this was again changing or modifying the language to include that 90 days of employment you will be evaluated for approval or not for remote work. And this also had some verbiage that was relating back to the old timekeeping system, so we wanted to make sure we updated that. And we had the hybrid work schedule as a memo that came out from the executive director that was putting it in place, but it was not part of the policy. Law recommended that we incorporate that into the policy so that it's all in one place and something that the employees had to sign off on versus having two separate documents. And I think, Mayor Traore, to your question, we do have we're hybrid right now where it is 3 days a week in the office and 2 days at home if employees choose. We have a work calendar that people are required to sign up for their days in the office so we know what coverage we have. We've since added day baseball games to that so people are aware of what parking's going to be like for their commute and for other things. But we really do feel that our team, I mean, I appreciate your point, Councilman Simon, for being hybrid. You know, this team went completely remote, which had never been done before in terms of doing all the public involvement and keeping projects moving forward. And to be, you know, an employer of choice, we really do feel it is essential to have that opportunity and that option for employees to have flexibility in their workday. So again, that's not something the county offers, and we wanted to make sure that we had that structure in place.
Comments?
Just a comment to follow up on my question last time. We had a vacancy of a planner, and I said, why? And obviously, I think Director Wong said, you know, we're not competitive with private, and this is an opportunity, I think, to at least compete to bring in qualified people best we can.
Thank you.
I also want to comment that, this is Director Huang, that I think the eligibility policy is very strong. So the idea that like there is a probationary period to kind of see how it goes, right? And then if it works out, great. But if
Not, you may have to wait a little longer.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to just see if folks are working.
Right, and I think too, just to make sure that, you know, as a new employee, you're comfortable with the technology, you're comfortable that you've got enough work that you aren't having to have someone continuously monitor the work you're doing. When you get to that point, at least you have that determining whether or not you're eligible for that at that point. And I will say, I have some of our new hires that are taking advantage of it. It's been fantastic, so no issues.
Any other comments, questions? Is there a motion? Motion made to approve
Motion, Brennan.
by Brennan, second Dever. Any other further comments, questions? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, that motion carries.
Thank you very much. The next resolution, sorry, we're getting through these, 230413-G. This is a revision to the Planning Commission's vacation leave policy. This was something, again, to better align with the county's manual and to further clarify type of time off during probation period. Another thing I think that was important, this might be in sick, but I think we had a much more of a calculation table in ours versus the very simple accrual depending on numbers of years. And we thought that was important to use what the county uses because we follow that same earnings. And so we wanted to make sure that that was part of ours instead of the table that we previously were using. Again, that probably dates back to that, but was probably something in the county's manual when we did ours in 2014, but that since has changed. So both sick and vacation are very similar to just making sure we're being consistent with the county since we are paid out of the county timekeeping system, and making sure that we modernize terms and languages that are used in the policy.
Any comments, questions?
Motion approved. Second, Milo.
Motion by Councilman Simon, second by Mayor Leo. Any other further comments, questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries.
Okay, and then the last resolution needing your review and approval, 230413-H. This is revision to the sick leave policy. Much like I just mentioned on the vacation policy. I think one thing that was very much out of date in our policy was the references to what immediate family meant. And that was very clearly defined in the county's update to their manual and using, certain tenses of verbiage and names of family members. And so we wanted to make sure that we had updated current language in there as well. So I thought that was important to make sure we're referencing the same information.
Any comments, questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Sullivan, second by Mayor Gallo. Any other further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries.
Thank you. Phew. I promise next time I won't bring that many more forward.
Okay, next is, county planning bylaws, recommended modifications, that was,
Yes, so we are going to, we previously brought this to the board in February and had stated that we would have a vote on this at this next meeting. However, with the addition of 4 new board members, we thought it was important to give the new board members ample time to review the bylaws. So they're in your packet with track changes and edits. Mayor Wheelo has graciously offered her assistance and saying that she loves bylaws, and so that she will be willing to help us go through them. Yeah. Again, these were something that were approved back in 2015, I believe, and so we've got some catching up to do. And I think it's important that we, have the proper amount of time, and thank you for those that have provided feedback. But I think one thing that I wanted to mention today is that we don't have much of anything in there as it relates to public comment. And given the current situation with a local board and the problems they've faced with public comment and the definition of who can and how many and when they have to sign up, I think it might be something worthwhile that we define in our bylaws of what we do. The only thing right now we do is on the top of our agenda, we say that public comment must be received in writing no later than an hour before the board meets. That agenda is posted publicly a week in advance, so there is opportunity for people to comment, but I know county council has a policy where you just sign up before the meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be on an agenda item where there are other boards where it specifically must be something that's on the agenda on that date to speak to it. And I know time limits are something that's fine, but I know that there has been, some limitation in some boards that only so many can sign up, and there's been a lot of pushback on that. So I just think given kind of the current situation on some other board issues outside of this one, that we give some consideration of adding some language to that.
does anybody have any thoughts on that right now? Mayor?
So, some legislative bodies will have it twice in an agenda. One will be public comment on agenda items only, and then at the end of the meeting, it's kind of a free-for-all, like any topic. Usually it's 2 to 3 minutes, and usually you don't have to do it an hour before.
So one question is do you have it at the beginning or do you have it at the end?
I like mine at the beginning. I like it with a 3-minute time limit, and it's open to the floor. Bring what you got to say to the floor.
Council used to have the beginning and the end, and it became cumbersome because people would just repeat what they said if they wanted to be heard. I like the beginning, the 3 minutes.
Get in and over.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
And the way that we do it, we have in the beginning is open conversation, and then the secondary one is specific to the agenda.
Is it a conversation though? I mean, it's just somebody to present their views.
They come up, we give them 5
and
minutes to talk about whatever they want, they have questions, and then at the second half,
3 minutes.
we're very generous.
Director
I would also add that we have added policies to our public comment for planning commission specifically where if it's written comment, we also provide if you want to call and leave a voicemail or deliver a letter. There are just multiple ways that people can do it. It needs to be in by a certain deadline, however, and all other methods that are not the ones listed in our policy are not going to be considered.
Okay.
And that prevents
So I'm
people.
gonna look at your
Yes.
bylaws.
Are those read into the record, or is it just received by the members? Do you know? Like for the
we do-
voicemail or whatever?
Yeah, we put it into what we have is like a public platform that we send out all of our, like this.
Okay.
And so that way people can look at them if
Gotcha.
they want to in advance. We haven't gotten any voicemails, but we'd have to transcribe them. We might transcribe them in some way, so. But that has worked to prevent any other types of, I'll say, unsolicited feedback.
Okay, thank you.
No, we take, person and then we take email, right? We'll take that.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of comments coming back to the working group.
I'll do that. I would like to help on with the.
I don't mind, I mean, I did RTAs, I did the land banks.
That's great.
Can I?
If you want me, you got me.
Can I ask the mayor, if she's looking at this, if I can't do the chair, we need to flush out 7.04G about absences of board members 5 consecutive times. And I think we might want to look at authorized absences versus just an affirmative vote. This seems a little bit, not confusing, but cumbersome. There might be a better approach to this if somebody's absent, and then is it automatic that they're gone, or do we vote as a board? Just want to look at that a little bit more closely. So, county council at our council meetings, we move to excuse members
So do we.
at the outset, and then we don't have this later, where like we have to authorize their absence in retrospect. So, that's all.
I agree.
And then maybe we want to vote to kick someone off, or do we want it automatic? And is it okay to have their alternate here? I don't know.
Good points, good points.
It's good, and I think the way we talked about it with law too is, every other month is when we meet, so that's only 6. So it's like if someone missed a whole year, that's really what this is pointing to.
Right.
So,
Right.
and again, if sickness or something would be.
And if at county council, when you move to excuse, I mean, is it done rote by rote, or is there actually an effort to know why somebody's absent?
We usually know why.
Okay.
But it's not
It's not
advertised in the
Because
meeting,
it hasn't
but
been our experience
yeah.
in my community that we really even know. They just by routine excuse everybody who's absent.
No.
And I wouldn't want to see that.
Okay.
So I would, perhaps we even note something to that effect that, that an excused absence is for a reason. I don't.
Not that it has to be
exactly-
publicly stated,
No,
but
it
maybe
doesn't have to be
by
publicly
conversation with
disclosed,
director
but
or
those of us
chair.
who are voting on it should have some idea, or know that somebody here has it.
if there's been a request made type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be in favor of that, because, most people here are volunteering their time, right? The question is, are you gonna miss a year's worth of work here, right?
Right.
So, I don't need to know why you're not here, right?
Mayor Wheeler?
I was gonna bring that up, so there is no, payment of any kind.
Right.
So usually in a bylaw, when you are getting a stipend of some kind, it is tied to the meeting, so they have to say
Right.
if it's approved or not, because if it's not approved, then you're not paid, right? So I know in something like this, and I know in other boards and commissions that I've served on, you didn't have to come out with it. Though everybody pretty much knew, because people didn't hide it. But I will tell you, I know that, on one board that I served, someone didn't show up for 2 years and they were paid. So, that's why I jumped on that committee real fast. But usually, like Brad said, if you're donating your time, it's not but when there's some kind of stipend put with it, you have to approve it. Usually people know.
Are we talking about stipends now for the planning commission?
No.
We don't have budget for that. No.
Yes.
Mayor Organ?
Thank you very much. To the council's point, though, I think we should look at it, at least put something in there where, you do have to report to the director, and officially say, hey, I won't be here. And even though we're not gonna be paid, we do have a duty to the county, so. I think maybe we just.
Somehow.
I would hope somebody would call in and say, I'm not coming to the meeting today, right? But we're not children, you don't have to be looking at me like that.
All right, so Wes, we'll go back and take a look at that.
Okay.
All right, so the working group, it sounds like Mayor Wheeler, Councilperson Simon, and
And of course, our law
Anybody else
department.
wants to join in?
Our law department.
Sure.
So I was gonna say, in the past, usually you'll set up a meeting, we'll go,
Section by section.
maybe set aside a couple hours,
Oh, yeah.
Or if Sunday, if it's easier to do a working lunch, we can bring in a sandwich or something and sit here, we'll just.
Through a Zoom meeting?
That works too.
Okay, but usually it's better to do it
Sit
in
across the
person,
table.
but if we
I
can't,
agree.
Zoom's fine.
All right, we'll find.
We can find each other.
Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Les.
you.
All right.
Thanks. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, director's report.
Oh, I feel so bad. We're at the very end, but I didn't expect so many questions on the urban tree canopy, but they were all good. Okay, so much like we did last year was our first ever annual report. We are happy to report that we are releasing our second annual report. And we wanted to make sure that you saw it first. We will be releasing it tomorrow. So if you see anything glaring wrong with any of this, I would encourage you to let me know as soon as possible. But we did follow kind of quote unquote story map format, really more of a microsite that will live on our website. Just really talk through, and I will say kudos to Susan, who is here, and Kevin as well. They led this effort for our team. Great input from several team members and great graphics work by Rachel. So all done internally. And so again, I just continue to brag about the talent of this team. So I just want to thank them all for their hard work on getting this across the finish line. As you remember, we did our vision, mission, and core values defined last year as part of our staff retreat. I won't bore you with all the different sections, but just give you an idea as you go through, just really trying to highlight the work that we've done in 2022, working for so many communities, and then larger initiatives that we are working very closely with City of Cleveland on TOD and others, RTA, really trying to make sure that we are helping our communities think about future development and making sure that we have zoning in place that will help the development that we want to see in our communities. TOD has been a great partnership with several entities, and we're continuing that work. It's got great coverage by Steve Litt. Continue to work very closely with RTA on moving this forward. Very near and dear to our heart, Lakefront Public Access, but working with Smith Group, Public Works, doing these renderings of showing kind of like what does it look like today, versus what it could look like before in the future with these continued investments along our lakefront. So, the Euclid Beach connector here, so Smith Group was able to get us some renderings there, which was really nice. Aerozone, we worked very closely with the Aerozone Alliance and the 9 communities that were part of the effort to do a current conditions assessment. They are now considering doing a master planning effort, still working out what that might look like, and it's something, Joyce, I need to circle back with you on making sure we have the city involved in some of these conversations as well. Mayor Orcutt and his team have been involved with that, and we had some really great conversations with all the various communities. Put a really nice report together for the Aerozone Alliance. For suburbs single-family zoning, phase 2, we had a great meeting with the First Suburbs Consortium, just March, February, it's not that long ago, but really providing tools now for the First Suburbs Consortium members so that they can look at infill zoning and what they would like to see in their communities and how we can work with all of those communities together versus individually. Master planning obviously is our bread and butter of the work that we do on our team. Continue to do public engagement and looking at different ways to do public engagement so that we're making sure we really are reaching the community members, really trying to meet them where they are. And so if there's already events in a community, making sure that we're there and have materials available so that they don't have to come to a specific public meeting down, at another location that maybe not as accessible. So Garfield Heights, worked on the master plan for that. Again, trying to re-envision what Turneytown could look like. With new development in that area, so continue to work with our communities and trying to plan for the future with them. Middleburg Heights was another one that we did a master plan for and looking at how they can make some improvements and new development in areas that are already pretty developed already, but helping with traffic flow and other amenities for the community members. Brooklyn Heights, we did a master plan for them as well. Just looking at intersection improvements and how we look at real multimodal improvements in those communities. So all of our work is different. We do a lot of work, but we're trying to hit all of the big items, green space. A lot of you are pictured in a lot of these, this picture here, and there's a video actually that various tours that happened last year. We had really great representation on those Greenway partner tours to really showcase where we are on the critical gaps and how we're really trying to coordinate and our efforts to get funding for those trail segments. Canal Basin Park was open last year. Again, just the advocacy work of our involvement with the Greenway partners. And, Garfield Boulevard is another one. This is another great collaborative effort. Sewer District, ODOT, Public Works. There was just a $500,000 grant awarded. So looking at what the current existing conditions are on Garfield Boulevard to see what it could be, looking at stormwater detention, better multimodal access, and so really helping a very, very large street feel more like a neighborhood street and a connection through that city. Grant administration, you heard a lot about that. Urban Tree Canopy today. Also, Allison manages on behalf of the state the SKIP program as well as NRAC. So really trying to help communities make those big investments on the things that, you know, nobody wants to spend money on, concrete and infrastructure, but very necessary. And I know that awards are being made as we speak on some of those. Healthy Urban Tree Canopy we talked a lot about. And then just again, I mean, you guys know Dan Meany and his team in the GIS do just some tremendous work. Data book, we have the data book coming out soon, Kevin. Yes, the next version of that. So that will be released, and you know, Kevin on the data side, and just kind of keep always trying to make things fresh and how we share the data. Very valuable tool that will make sure all our communities get. We also help the Department of Development looking for vacant land in Cuyahoga County. As you know, Team NEO leads come out constantly, and we want to make sure that we're ready for responding to those, not only attraction but also expansion opportunities for our communities and their businesses. So, working in coordination with Team NEO and some of the work that Allegro is doing for the county and for Team NEO, a great collaborative effort on that too. I know this was a point of conversation at one of our earlier meetings when we entered into an agreement with the Department of Health looking at grocery store access, and so I do know Cleveland State just released the report on that, and so we were very involved in the mapping related to that effort. Some of these familiar faces here, zoning map updates, Maple Heights zoning map. We did an interactive zoning map, so you can actually, you know, this is something that's on their website and that we're working with other communities to do something similar. So you can actually zoom in and actually go right to that part of the zoning map and figure out what the zoning is. If you're a developer, you're looking to do some business there, you can launch that right from the website. And then a lot of other maps that Dan and his team do. Library redistricting was a big thing. Westlake asked us to do in terms of how development has happened and where their wards are. Transit-oriented development viewer for walk sheds. This was a tool that our new GIS person, Liam, created. This was really a tool in-house for the First Suburbs Consortium, not for public consumption, but really did look at, you could go right into each one of those districts in your community in the single-family zoning, or First Suburbs Consortium, and see how many were in compliance with the current zoning and how many were not. And so very visual kind of check in of what you have and what your zoning really allows. And then just about us. We didn't have everyone's board pictures yet, so we just put the planning regions there, but we hope, you know, next year we'll have our full slate and pictured, and we'll be able to have all your beautiful faces on our story map next year. But we do include our staff, all of our pictures there, which I think it's important to show who does the work behind the scenes and that they're not all here in front of you every day. Of course, finances, we couldn't do it without the money from Cuyahoga County and all those others who support our work, and so wanted to just show a breakdown of our finances. And then also, finally, we wanted to really show like what our work was. And I know there's a lot on this wheel, but it really does showcase, all the light blue shows the different communities that we worked for. The green showcases the regional initiatives. The dark blue showcases what we've assisted other county departments and agencies with, and then the gray is the state programs that we administer. So I am happy to see this, that we really are doing a lot of our work individually in communities, but then just as importantly is these initiatives that really can benefit multiple cities at the same time versus contracting separately with each of them. So I think we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and I believe we're doing what we're charged to do, and so we're really happy with the work we did in 22, and we are all systems go in 23. So.
Okay, that's great, Mary.
Very nice. Very nice.
I have a question. So, in the past, we've been told that the county will be the first built-out county in Ohio, looking at about 2030. Is that still what do you project that that's still when we'll be totally built out as 2030?
I don't know specifically. I do know we are obviously extremely built out, but what we are finding where there has been, either demolitions or something has changed in the landscape and trying to figure out, there's a lot of city land bank, there's a lot of county land bank, there's a lot of land that someone may own that is not being put to its best use. So we're trying to identify underutilized land as well as that. And so that's really what we are trying to hone in on, some of those vacancy
I think
properties.
that's real critical for economic development moving forward, and also for green space, reforestation, and, even the idea of farming. The reality is that access to local food in areas of Cleveland, it's not there. That grocery report was disgusting. It was just ripped your heart out. So you say to yourself, is there a way to actually bring farming back? Back in the day, there was farming there. So, I just wondered with the 20, what was happening. It's to know that. And are we still gonna be the first built-out county because of demolition and all that? To get that monkey off our back wouldn't be a bad thing either.
And I know the administration, that's a big piece of theirs too, is identifying, these opportunities for redevelopment, so.
And the other thing is, when I left the planning commission, the last time, which was 2010 or 2011, housing still was the number one rooftop in Cuyahoga County. That was our number one economic engine, if you want to, say it. Is that still true, that we have more rooftops for housing than we do in the way of manufacturing, commercial, all of that?
Venture to say yes, but I don't know for certain.
Okay,
I'm sure we can find that out.
I just wondered in the county if we were still,
More residents.
I think it was 68%. It was a little higher, but then I know with the foreclosure crisis and everything wasn't knocked down by that time, I think it was hit about 68% maybe. I wondered where we were.
Seems like the conversion of a lot of downtown housing or from
Yes, that's what I'm
Right,
saying. Like,
right, from
how do
commercial
you,
to residential.
to me, is it really the fact that, work from home is gonna be a critical economic engine for us? I know even in my own city, I have, the young people you interview, they want that, be able to do it, so.
Okay, any other comments or questions or thoughts?
Thanks, Mary.
Well, I thank you all. I know that was longer than our usual meeting, and I do try to keep them to an hour for our new board members, but that was a lot, so thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
anything else?
HPs.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll bring mine
All right,
back.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.